Hey, Tony Jackson here. Now, if you know me, then you know holiday birthdays and anniversaries and stuff like that is special days. But so I'm not working today. No coaching sessions, no phone calls, no text messages. I'm only filming this right now just because it's an important message, but also because I'm headed home. Had to drop off my son at school. Youngest son under the weather, my wife under the weather. It's our anniversary today, and we already did our anniversary celebration. We went to Vegas to watch a boxing match last weekend. So today we just relaxing, taking it in, and she in the bed resting, and I'm gonna be in the bed resting. But I posted on Instagram a reel that she made for me last night. I had her get a bunch of pictures, and I chose an audio, and she made the reel on my phone, which is also just a blessing in itself that 16 years into marriage, that I could come home after midnight from being out shopping, getting her some little self-care stuff and all of that, because we didn't get home till 10:30 from soccer practice. So then I went out to gas up, and then went to Walgreens to just kind of put together a few bags for her of just some self-care stuff and all that while she under the weather and relaxing. My wife, as far as gifts are concerned, she has everything that I could think of and that she could think of, just because one of my love languages is giving gifts. So I'm always kind of buying her the latest release of whatever brands that she's into, and the material things don't matter that much. And I had more fun last night putting together very thoughtful, curated things than I do when I'm buying something that's designer or luxury. It was a lot more fulfilling. But one of the things that I wanted to pop on here and share is what I shared in my caption on Instagram. These 16 years of marriage has really taught me that every marriage can work. That there's no such thing as a soulmate. You can fall in love with any human being, because love is not found. Love is created. Love is spiritual. So the same way God has the capacity to love every human equally, we have the capacity to love any human we meet if we choose to love them. Because love is a choice, and then love is an action. And love is an action within yourself, and then love is an action towards someone else. And most marriages fail for the same reasons most people cannot find a career that they love. And that is because we don't choose to be happy. We don't choose joy. We expect our external situation to make us happy. And nothing will do that, and nothing can do that. Whether you spend $1 million or whether you spend $1, it feels the same. And I've done it, so I'm here to tell you, it feels the same. And oftentimes, to be honest with you, less feels like more. Less actually feels better than a lot. To have a little, and that's all you have, a lot of times feel better than to have a lot and not know what to choose or what to do. So there's beauty in every season. There's abundance in every season. And in every marriage, there's two human beings who have a malleable heart. A heart that can change, that can grow, that can sow and know. But yet, a choice has to be made. Marriages fail due to stubbornness. Someone stuck in their childish ways, operating from childhood trauma and refusing to address their trauma, heal their trauma, and grow. That's why marriages end. One person makes a choice, and then the other person either reflects them or chooses to no longer be a reflection to their inconsistency and unwillingness to grow. And that's why marriages end. So as a man, I want to be controlling. I want to be domineering. I want to be jealous. I want to be insecure. I want to operate from all of those weak places because it feels good to have someone else be your band-aid, to have someone else be your punching bag, to have someone else be the person that has to be responsible for your insecurities. But those things do not serve a marriage. Those things are not healthy in marriage. Those things will destroy the person you're married to, and it will eventually destroy you too. So then a choice has to be made. Do I want to grow? Am I willing to grow? And then when I choose to grow, my spouse, who was a reflection to my unwillingness to grow, then has to choose to grow. Because what happens in these situations, listen, I'm gonna tell you now, go ahead. You got it. 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 Go ahead. Go ahead. Y'all forgive me. I forgot I was filming. I'm up there directing traffic. I got my hand doing like this. Y'all forgive me. Because this is what you have to realize. When one person is in a broken state, the person that they're with has to choose to stay or leave. So when someone is in a broken state, if the other person chooses to stay, it breaks them. But when the person who was broken first chooses to learn and to grow and to change, then the other person who was the recipient, the victim of the brokenness, has to choose to learn, to grow, and to change. Because oftentimes trauma bonds us. And as humans, if we remain in a toxic or abusive situation, we adapt to it. And although it's draining, and although we can cry and we hurt and we feel, we are also accustomed to it. We're used to that feeling. We become, quote unquote, comfortable in suffering. And then normalcy feels abnormal. So if the couple takes a break and the person who was being abused goes and meets someone who is not abusive, it is a shock at first. And some people who are in a toxic, abusive relationship end up self-sabotaging a healthy relationship because of what they were feeling or because of what they know about love and relationships. So I want you to understand that any marriage can work. It takes two. It takes two. It takes two willing people. And so when the person who was causing the most pain, and sometimes it's both people at the same time, but people hurt differently and people hurt others differently. So one person may be a high-level manipulator and the other person may be a low-level manipulator or may not be a manipulator. The other person may be a very direct person who is a direct controller. And so if a high-level manipulator, someone who can weasel their way and they can get what they want and they can make you do what they want you to do without telling you to do it, well, sometimes that type of behavior will make a person who isn't a manipulator respond aggressively because they can feel something is being done to them, but they can't pinpoint what it is. They feel used, they feel taken for granted, they feel abused, they feel mentally warped. What they used to call in the secular world, they use the F word when they say mind effed. So we'll come up with the Christian term for that. That's what they feel. And when they feel that, and y'all forgive me, saints, for taking you outside the church real quick and bringing you back. But when they feel that, they're like, whoa, hold on. And so they may respond differently. And it was something I learned through relationships, even before marriage, is that in a lot of toxic relationships, the woman may be abusive mentally, and then the man, not having that level of cognitive skills, may then abuse her physically because she operates through psychological warfare and he operates through physical warfare, because women are thinkers and men are doers by nature. And yes, this can be flip-flopped, but this is on average. So when you really think about it, if you've ever been in a toxic or abusive relationship, think about what role you played in that. And were you an innocent bystander, an innocent participant, or did you operate from your own childhood trauma and brokenness or toxicity, but then the retaliation was greater than what you thought you deserved or should have received? And that's the case in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, it's very rare that one person is just completely innocent and played no role in the toxicity of the relationship. It takes two, because you don't end up with who you want, you end up with who you are. You end up with a reflection of you. And when that person no longer is a reflection of you, then you move on, unless they're willing to grow with you. And when I say reflection, I don't mean twin flames. I don't mean identical twins. I mean, they have the same morals and values that you have. They have the same level of integrity and character that you have. So when they are toxic, controlling, abusive, and you are with them, and you are reinforcing that behavior by staying, that is how you feel about yourself. And then one day you muster the courage and you get the strength and you say, this is not me, and I refuse to allow this to be me, or for myself to be a reflection of who they are. I'm dealing with a monster and I refuse to become a monster. So I'm going to remove myself from this relationship. And then that's when you muster the courage and you leave. But here's the thing. A person would never leave real love. A person would never leave true love. If you lost it, it wasn't real love. Because love not only has to be given, love has to be received. Love cannot just be affirmed, it has to be confirmed. And so if you're loving someone who is not loving you back, then you don't have love. You're giving love, but you don't have love. You're not receiving love. So when the love is not mutual, then the relationship cannot survive. But if two people, what in the world? If two people are humble, confident, selfless, and willing to work, any relationship can work. Any relationship can work. But when one person, and then sometimes it becomes two people, is stubborn, arrogant, and weak, the relationship will suffer. So I want you to understand, in 16 years of marriage, today marks the date of 16 years of marriage, my wife and I have gone through just about everything. We have not gone through everything. And we've gone through just about everything to our knowledge. It's things that we don't know about each other. And that's the way it should be. Because no one is capable of handling your secrets. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they make a human their God. Only God can handle who you are in the dark. Only God can handle the deepest, darkest thoughts or feelings or actions that has happened in your life. Only God can handle that. Never put that responsibility on a human. What does not come to the light is God's grace. Don't bring something to the light that God has kept in the dark for you, because he has dealt with it in the dark. And that's a mistake that so many couples make, is they fall or they've been pushed and they've gone through something that is shameful or hurtful, and they take that and they tell their spouse, the person who has to live with them and love them. And humans don't have the ability to forget. Even if a human says he or she has forgiven, they will never forget. But see, God tells us that with our sin, and even with our trauma and our hurt and our pain, our trauma, our hurt, our pain, God can heal it. Our sin, God can forgive it and forget it. Let God be God and stop asking a human to be God. And that's a mistake that I've seen so many people make. So I know it's a lot that my wife maybe has done or said about me, to me, and I don't want to know about it, because that's between her and God. And if there's a price to pay, then she'll pay that price. And the same for myself. I'm not going to take everything that I've done in my past and just lay it all out and spell it all out, because the human brain, the human mind does not have the ability to remove those images, to forget those things. And it could have been before her, have nothing to do with her, and still affect her if I bring her into the knowledge of every detail. So I say that to say, you got to realize and understand that every marriage can work if you're willing to work. And when it seems like it's not going to work, you got to stand your ground. Because fighting through it, meaning reinforcing toxic behavior, does not help a marriage work. It makes it worse. God chastises those he loves. That's why we should chastise those we love. And chastise doesn't mean physical. It doesn't mean treating someone like a child. It means that you reprimand versus reward behavior that you do not want to see repeated. So if that means getting distance for a day, for a week, for a season, to let your spouse know that cannot and will not be tolerated, that has to change. And if that doesn't change, if you're unwilling to change that, I'm unwilling to remain. And when you send that message, if a person loves you, they're gonna change, they're gonna grow, and it's gonna work. So listen to me. Listen to me. Don't rush love. Don't force love. Work on yourself. The greatest thing you could do is work on yourself. Work on yourself. Love yourself. Know yourself. Prepare for love. Even if you're already in love, prepare for love. Attract love. Receive love. Appreciate love. And reciprocate love. And if you do that, any marriage can work. Any marriage can work. Marriage is not broken. Marriage is not broken. Marriage is not broken. Love is not broken. Love is not broken. Love is not broken. But people are. People are broken. So when people decide to do the work and fix ourselves, that will fix our marriage. Love is always pure. Love is always kind. A relationship is not always those things, because sometimes people do not operate from love. They operate from hate. They operate from pain. They operate from trauma. And when you operate from those things, you don't have love. So I want you to understand this. And I'm in a season of growth. And I had to learn. And so what I had to learn is that I needed to listen to God. I need to listen to God, take instruction from God, relay that instruction to my wife, and then implement the instruction from God. Even if it's uncomfortable or it doesn't seem blissful or easy for me or my wife, the instruction from God must be implemented. Because obedience is greater than sacrifice. So if I implement the instruction from God, then we will reap the reward. But if I ignore the voice of God and I listen to my flesh or my wife's flesh, and then I am ushered into a season of calamity, then it produces resentment toward my wife and self-hate toward myself. And that sends me into a space that is uncomfortable, but in a bad way, not in a good way. And it makes me a bad person. And then, in turn, my wife will suffer spiritually. And I will be suffering spiritually. And we'll end up losing. So I had to learn that my disposition and my mentality and my attitude was coming from disobedience to the instruction of God. And that affected my marriage. And where my wife maybe was getting what she wanted in the physical realm, she was not operating or receiving what she needed or wanted in the spiritual realm. So when she is not in the spiritual, meaning when she's not hearing from God, I have to make sure I'm hearing from God, because He's going to speak to one of us and He's going to speak to both of us. And if one of us doesn't listen, the other one has to listen. And that's what makes marriage work. But see, when God spoke to Adam, Adam did not listen. Adam listened. But when the adversary spoke to Eve, then Eve spoke to Adam. Adam listened to Eve instead of listening to God. Had Adam listened to God, Eve would have listened to Adam. And then things would have never turned out the way they did. And I found that to be true, because there's been several times that I've listened to my wife instead of listening to God. And I've listened to my flesh instead of listening to God. And not to say that I'm bad or that she's bad, but to say we're human. And humans make those mistakes. So when God is the center and you are being instructed spiritually and you're being obedient, your marriage will thrive. And I want you to know and understand that. So, hey, I done made it back home. God bless you. No working for me today. Set this on upload. Let it upload so you'll see it, Lord willing. God bless you. We'll talk soon.